So I was on my way home from getting my hair done, and I really like this haircut. So obviously, I had to do a video today, right? Since I just got it done, and it's doing the things that the hairstylist intended for it to do, and that makes me really happy. um, I talked about how back in the fall I got this really strong sense that I was supposed to go to the girl that I was taking, the one older lady, to her hair appointments at, right? And I had been going somewhere else, still in town, that most of my family was going to, and I really needed some separation from that. So I finally called and got the appointment set up, called on Friday, and got it done because I had just got my hair colored, and that's always the best time to get it cut, is right after I do that. And then it does really cool things with the the coloring that way too. And it's not just bending at the ends like it was before, and that makes me really happy. So yeah, I told her the same thing that I told the other girl, was I'm trying to grow it out, but at the same time, there's a lot of damage that I'm aware there's a lot of damage, and would like to see as much of that go as possible. So, of course, where it was damaged this time around, I mean, it wasn't really any worse than it had been, because we just have been bleaching the roots and not all of it. And she said she thought she could cut most of it off with layers. It's like, I like layers. Go ahead and throw all the layers in, to get rid of as much of the crap as possible. And I'm happy. So since I was feeling really in a good mood, obviously I have to take advantage of this opportunity to, since I like my hair. And I didn't have the dogs in the car, so here we are over at the park doing a video. Yeah. And today was just when I was laying in bed this morning, the stuff I was thinking through, it's like, ooh, there's so much new stuff that's coming into my awareness and making sense in ways that it hasn't even made sense before, and realizing how literally connected everything is, even on that point, right? So on the connectedness thing, I have had these things in my cart. I have Horus, I have Ra, and an Ankh. And they're wall hanging things, and it was through this one shop, and it was all three things. And it's like, I want those, right? And I've wanted those for a while, and they were just in my cart. I figure there's a good chance I will probably paint them when I get them, but I'm getting the black version of them from this LunaWoodArts place on Etsy. I was really excited about. And they've been in my cart for months. And I would save for later, and then I put it back in there, and then save for later. It's and I finally decided last night, it's you know what? I've wanted those for a while. I'm getting ready to change things up. I'm going to go ahead and get them because I want them. And so I got them. Ordered them last night, and all was fine and dandy. Well, as Etsy does, because I just made a purchase through the shop, they sent me a discount code for, anything else in the shop, which kind of irrelevant at the point, because most of the stuff looks like it's on sale, for this discounted amount. But still, it got me in and looking at the shop again, right? So I'm looking, and I come across this yin yang, which I've talked about those on here before, but I went ahead and ordered that one too. Even though, yes, I could get one of those anywhere, technically, this one, I still had my phone on sleep mode, so it's still the black and gray on everything. But when I looked at it, it really popped this morning, in a certain way that was I was just staring at it, and it's noticing how, okay, on for this one in particular, the light side is the light. I mean, there's no color on the thing. It's just like the one that's, I don't even know how to describe it. Just, part of it's cut out and the other part looks like it's elevated or whatever. The way I was looking at it, it caught my attention. It was like the one side, which appears to be the dark side, was the boundary looked more obvious, than the other side. Because, of course, okay, if you're looking at it with, let me get my little thing out, and I don't, God, where the hell is it? All these daggone necklaces in here. Right, so on this one, it looks like the darker one is the more solid boundary, right? But on that one, it looked like the light side was the more solid boundary. And I have been thinking a lot lately, especially just, okay, I was thinking about how yesterday I talked about getting pulled into other people's stuff because I didn't have my own boundaries, right? And I was thinking, since when I saw this boundary, that, it looked like the white side was the more obvious boundary, but then obviously you don't see the white boundary on the white side, you see it on the dark side, right? But I was thinking that obviously boundaries are a huge thing that I'm learning about in the past, especially the past little over a year now, but because of stuff for my entire life, right? So it made me think, okay, so the feminine side, which is associated with the darker side, if you will, and at least in this means of thinking, I guess, wasn't sure I knew them. Luckily I don't. So I was thinking about like the feminine part, the world doesn't want us to have boundaries because we have this feminine aspect of ourselves that wants to reach out and to help others, right? So it is essential to figure out like what's yours to fix and what's not, and leave the stuff that's not behind. Like you're not responsible for healing the stuff that's not yours to heal. You can only heal that which is yours, right? So boundaries are critical because if you don't know what's yours and what's somebody else's seeping into your energy, and you feel like you have to heal that stuff too, they're going to keep living in the... Okay, what I've learned with my family is if you try to heal things for people that are not concerned on healing their own stuff, it's not going to do anything except for literally suck the life out of you, right? So you have to know what is yours to heal and what is not. And then the stuff that's not yours, you have to choose to say, no, that is not mine. I'm not going to do anything with it. Like that part I was talking about when the eagle crossed my path the other day, right? So I was thinking about how literally the only way to win is not to play their game, like the game of the back and forth, getting pulled into other people's bullshit, whether, if you want to look at it the political scale, at the red side or the blue side. It's like, and if somebody is very locked into that division and seeing everything as separate, no amount of middle of the road thinking or like demonstrating is going to appease them. They were automatically like, because I talked about the other day, I had somebody that said something about, are you leftist or something, or just assuming that I was leftist or whatever. It's like, here's the thing with that. It's like, it literally does not matter how much you stick on that, like the straight and narrow path, the one that's not getting ripped back and forth between the division. Whatever one side sees, you're going to look like the enemy to them, because they're so locked in this way of being, where if you're not on our side, then you must be on their side. And if you're on their side, we don't like you. It's like, well, you're not going to like me anyway, because I'm more liberal than conservative, but more conservative than liberal. So it's like, neither one of those extremes works for me. So, because it's an extreme, it's like the extreme is where the issues get locked in. But like, in reality, we're all one. We are all a part of the divine, and, you know, this big picture thing. You know, if we can step into the fullness of who we came here to be, and, you know, step into our full light, that's gonna aggravate a lot of people's demons, right? And when they're so locked in seeing everybody else as, if you're not on this side with us, then you're the enemy, then it really doesn't matter where you stand on the spectrum of anything in life. If you're facing somebody who's at an extreme end and is set on remaining at the extreme end, you're not going to win with them. And literally the only thing you can do in that situation is just not even play that game, right? So the thing with the yin yang, and how I saw the boundary of around the dark side today, it really hit home for me that, you know, that it's the feminine aspect that I think wants to reach out and to heal and to help those that are hurting and all this stuff. But then it comes to that point of, if it's not yours, not everybody is concerned about the healing journey. And if they don't care about healing their own wounds, literally the only thing they're going to do is suck the life out of you trying to heal that wound for them. And nothing, like, it's just going to get like locked where nothing happens. Like, you are expending all of your energy on trying to heal this thing that doesn't want to be healed. And that's why you can't do that, right? So only through healing what is yours to heal and not everybody else's, you know, only by having that set boundary of, this is what I need to work through, can we be of any use to the bigger collective at large, right? I really hope that's making sense. I started trying to journal it this morning, and then I had my hair appointment, so I didn't want to mess myself up timing wise and not end up making it to my appointment on time or whatever. So I like started kind of touching on the things I was thinking through, and then it's like, that boundary thing was the big thing this morning. And that was funny, because the only reason that came up at that specific moment was because last night, because of all this, you know, this rearranging project that I'm currently working on, and trying to organize my space in a way I've not done before, because I'm purging a lot out in the process, and getting rid of stuff that is just in the way. Because I got this thing to bring into my space because it's something that I do like and I am drawn to it, and there's lots of layers to that whole thing too. And okay, I've thought about this several times, but this big bag of rocks, and where's the little bag of rocks? My big bag of rocks got a hole in it, so all the ones that were loose kind of wandered off. Okay. So in this bag, I have this little piece right here. This kind of actually makes me laugh. This is lepidolite, and it was a lepidolite ankh that I had in this bag that I was carrying with me all the time. And I knew it was kind of iffy because it was like this big, and it was in, this bag has this many rocks in it, but this bag has multiple, it's bigger, right? And there's the hole. So it wasn't even from how many rocks it was in this bag with. It was one night I decided for some reason to run the hairbrush through my hair, but like in the middle of the night, because it was kind of tangly. And when I picked it up, this weird material, the little meshy thing, got snagged on it, and it fell on the floor, and the ankh broke because it, hit the floor. And I was so aggravated. But obviously I didn't stop carrying the lepidolite around. I wanted that part, so I carried this piece because it's less awkward of the pieces, right? The funny thing about this, I saw something online the other day that was talking about the ankh and what it represents, and it was talking about how the piece at the top, the loopy piece, represents the divine feminine, the sacred womb, and I think the line in the middle has to do with like the union of the two. And the bottom piece, which is the piece that I have been carrying, represents the divine masculine. For phallic reasons, of course. So that's the part I'm carrying around. But it makes perfect sense, even as I'm thinking about it now, because like I've always been more in touch like with the feminine parts of myself, right? And I've always been the go with the flow type and not knowing the importance of boundaries. And it was the twin flame thing that came up and made me like started pushing the boundaries point, and like it started coming up everywhere. And of course, tigers, I've come to realize, at least for me and my journey and the way I have encountered them and experienced them in my existence, which of course, since I live in Indiana, there's not a whole lot of tigers around, right? But like that first day that I went to the Zubu thing, and it was the first day that we went to the zoo after I made this twin flame connection and like started piecing things together on that end. And one of the places that the tiger kept coming to me was through the animal apothecary card deck that I've talked about on here a lot, because one of them, there's two tiger cards in this deck, and one is Claim Your Power, and it talks about the masculine energy of taking action and all that fun stuff. The other one talks about the feminine energy, and it talks about how tiger doesn't allow certain things in her environment because she knows that nothing good's going to come from it, basically, right? So it's about boundaries, having boundaries. And like that card was the one that like kept coming more than the other one, but the other one was right there coming out a lot too. So it's like, for me, since I have kind of identified with this feminine aspect of myself more in my life, I'm realizing now that because I was so drawn to helping people and getting pulled into other people's stuff because boundaries weren't something I was ever taught about, and obviously for, for the family purposes and keeping toxic systems alive and in place. I mean, nobody in my life knew anything about boundaries and the need for them and all that stuff. It was, if you're keeping something secret, it must be wrong because, you wouldn't be ashamed to talk about it. But it's not about being ashamed to talk about something. It's that piece of not everybody is moving in the same direction of you. Okay. The thing that like kept coming up when I was in the process of getting my divorce, or like when I was emotionally preparing myself to be ready to get the divorce and, closing out the disconnecting from my ex. One of the things that kept coming up was this idea of, the people who be aware of the people who are, secretly drilling holes in your boat when you're trying to move through the water, right? If somebody's there just drilling holes in the boat, obviously they're not for you and they're trying to make you sink with them, right? So that was where I started like really being able to disconnect from my ex on that end, because I realized that literally I knew he didn't give a shit about me, but at the same time, seeing the stuff he was doing, it's like, I mean, obviously he didn't give a shit about himself either, but that's not the point. The point is, I realized that he was very much busy drilling the holes in the boat, right? And I didn't want to drown in this thing, but at the same time, was situated with somebody who was actively drilling holes in the boat, right? And when I got out of the toxic marriage situation, then it was, how did I get there, right? What things in my life led me to that point where that ended up being what I was having to face? And it's the same thing, right? It's like, because at this much deeper level, it's like my family has always been drilling the holes in the boat, right? And I didn't know that. I didn't really understand that until the thing with the bear picture came up and where I won the contest. And within a half an hour of finding out I won this contest, I end up spending the rest of the day in tears because I was so frustrated at seeing how readily my parents just hijacked the moment and tried to pull me back into their shit. And it was like, obviously disappointing on that end, right? But realizing that when it's your very own family that's drilling the holes in the boat, I mean, it sets you up to fail, right? Or that's what it's trying to do. And the only way to avoid that is, once you figure out the people that are drilling the holes in the boat, kick them out of the damn boat. So I have started enforcing much more solid boundaries and pushing back when people try to drag me into their stuff. And, I'm seeing very much that I am exactly where I'm supposed to be at this point in time, because I am learning these lessons from this situation that I'm in, and realizing that the feminine aspect of myself needed the boundaries, needed the assistance in finding the boundaries and pulling back what's mine and what other people don't need access to, disconnecting the people that are just trying to pull me down into this toxicity, that because I want to help, ended up really just putting me in a situation where I got the life sucked out of me by all these other types, and it was the twin flame situation that made me start encountering him in the real world. It was on social media, but that first time, it's like, it wasn't until after we had that brief encounter that I started really realizing that I felt completely unsafe in my body, and then it was, why is that? So that's what this journey has been, right? Because I didn't have boundaries, because everybody else was latching onto my energy and like pulling me down into this abyss and making it very difficult for me to navigate my way out of it. But then, when he came in, that showed up in that one particular dream that I've gone back to a lot, where I was sitting on the couch with my ex with one of my dogs on my lap, and then the 4 guys in the band were sitting on stools behind the couch that my ex and I were sitting on. And initially it was the anger was what I was fixated on, that feeling of anger toward my ex. And then I was doing, because I started doing this YouTube thing because of this whole twin flame journey, that because I got to that point where it's like he had to be in a spotlight so I could find him, but then how was he going to be able to find me, kind of a thing. And it's like, I was very confident that I needed to start the YouTube thing, and then I was terrified to do the YouTube thing, but also knowing it needed to happen. So here we are now doing it. And yeah, I think last time I saw it was like 167 videos. So I've been doing it a minute now, and it's getting a lot easier. It really is. But like starting out, it was rough, and then that other dream, the girl said it would take a while to build momentum, but it would build momentum in time. But I needed to start sharing the story I already had to share before more of my mission would be made clear. Now I'm realizing that it's like literally I had to talk my way out of the denser layers and like the heavier stuff that I had to unpack and to release before I could make these kind of connections. And it's like, oh, now it all makes more sense. But yeah, so the yin yang thing this morning, because I'm doing this whole overhaul of my space and want things that are uplifting and that I feel are a key in some way to what I'm learning. It's like I want more of that stuff in my space and less of the crap that's just like, I'm gonna sell my scrapbooking stuff, because I stopped doing anything with that, like that big ass bird cage. I'm down to 2 birds, so I don't need that big of a cage for 2 birds. So since this project is kind of at the forefront of my mind, then I had to get a smaller cage, and then I had to sell the bigger cage, and so it's kind of like been this little back and forth, and like it's a whole thing. But because I finally decided to purchase those things last night from this one shop, then I was led to this other thing where I saw this boundary and it like really just popped and caught my attention first thing this morning. And it's like, oh, it's like, so the feminine aspect needs the boundary, so it's not just getting pulled into everybody's stuff all the time, right? And like, I've spent most of my life feeling like I couldn't take action on anything, like in any kind of direction for me and for for deciding what I want in life. And then, yeah. You know, since YouTube was the first thing I started doing where it's been more led by the masculine aspect of myself, and then hey, as a matter of fact, I'm carrying around this little piece that also represents the masculine in this bag because the whole thing broke, right? It's like, even that obviously happened for a reason, right? So here I am now carrying this this little piece around and realizing that as I'm stepping more into my power, which was that other, you know, the other tiger card, the masculine aspect, it's like things are making like way more sense, you know. And okay, so I've heard, I know Natural Mystic has talked about it in like one video I saw. She talked about how, okay, there's the masculine and the feminine, right? And they come together and they create a third energy, which is the God energy, if you will. It's like, it's that love energy, right? So the feminine is active up in the upper three chakras, which throat, third eye, and crown. And then the masculine is over the root, sacral, and solar plexus, and they unite in the heart space. So it's like, I've always felt disconnected from my body, even, right? And like, I can dream all sorts of things and not bring it into reality because I didn't know how to do that, because I was so disconnected from the masculine aspect of myself, which is the lower three chakras, which, you know, getting back into your body and being able to ground in the things that I'm learning. So, right? So now I'm finally making these connections, and it's like, oh, it's like now things are taking on like a whole new meaning to everything. Yeah. So the feminine piece and the unity piece of my Ankh stayed at home. I still have them, but they're not attached to this piece, obviously, right? But the masculine piece comes with me. Yeah. Which just kind of, yeah. Oh, yeah. I feel like there's a whole lot of that about my energy, like, as I'm starting to make these connections. It's like, oh, well, that makes perfect sense now, right? But then, oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. that was just the big point today, was that boundary piece and okay, so if you consider the outer edge of like the yin yang, the outer edge of it that encapsulates the two, if you will, or encompasses them, whatever. If you consider that as the divine boundary, it's like, no wonder you have to bring the two aspects of yourself together and get them moving in the same direction before anything else can make sense, and before you can really step into the fullness of who you are. And, you know, you're random ad thing popping up. Okay. So when I started like this, really the fixation on the yin yang thing, I mean, it's not really a fixation, it's just always been drawn to it, right? So like when I first like was connecting with the twin flame piece of it, it's like I was focused on being just the dark aspect of it, right? The feminine, the watery, because, the elements are associated with certain things too. And I think water and earth are the feminine, and fire and air are the masculine elements. And then I have so much Cancer in them in my chart, but I also have like some Sagittarius energy and Leo Venus, and I think I have a Sagittarius stellium, if you will, because it's Neptune, Uranus, and something else. I forget. Yeah, I forget. Saturn, maybe. Jupiter? I don't know. One of those. But yeah. It's like I have it there, but it's okay. I got so much of the water that I lose the other anyway. But like when I first was thinking the twin flame thing, I was thinking I was just the dark piece, right? And, trying to, so carry essentially the masculine within me, and a way that it's played out for me is this Leo Venus, because on the twin flame stuff, I started, okay, I don't know anything about this dude's chart, right, other than his sun sign is Leo. But I know my Venus is Leo, and I'm really feeling like, because of the connections I'm making, that his Venus is probably going to be in Cancer, but not going to swear to it, because I could be off. Who knows? But the way I've had to think of it was when, like the disconnection that I felt was like, it felt like my heart space, like I was disconnected from my heart, right? So once I started letting my heart take a little more control, then I realized that I've had the capability the entire time, but I was so detached from it because I was letting everything else going on in the world get in my head, basically. And, kind of, I think that's that whole, your mind, the mind and the heart often seem like they are in competition with one another, but ultimately, I think the mind, the ego, is the earthy piece, because we are here on this planet. So we get disconnected from the God aspect until we start making some of these connections and learning things, and then, stepping into who we truly are, which initially for me, I had to reconnect with my heart space. And for the twin flame purpose of this journey, or the twin flame as the purpose of my journey, because I felt so far disconnected from my heart space that I realized that I had to, stop working against my heart, basically, right? And as I've stepped more into the embracing this, embracing the heart space for me, right? I realized it's a matter of coming into, and you already have everything you need to be the whole thing right there. And it's like when you see the little images where it's like the yin yang, and then within that whole it just keeps breaking down into another yin yang, and it just keeps going. It's like that's basically it, that we have to you know, come into union with our heart first. And then as it becomes more activated and we are more moving with when we're more heart led, right? Then we realize we are that whole thing, right? We already have both aspects within us. And yeah, for the twin flame purposes, it had to come across my path as something outside of myself, but then made me start realizing that I needed to move in this direction. I got distracted. My brother's apparently calling. I was really confused because my brother is calling and he doesn't call me very much. But I'll deal with that when I end this. But yeah, it's like as I've stepped more into embracing my heart space and moving to being heart led, I realize I'm already that full yin yang thing within myself. You know, I already have everything I need to do the hard things and, you know, step more fully into who I am and who I came here to be. But then, yeah, there's just so many layers to it. But yeah. I think, because I got distracted and now I want to know what my brother wanted. Because it's either going to be something with the kid or something with helping me move my stuff. And I don't know what time it is. It's almost 3. It might be the kid. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up just in case. And hopefully I'll have something brilliant tomorrow. And yeah. Anyway, as always, I appreciate you. Until the next time. See ya.